your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. I see with new eyes, allow and unfold, embrace and let go, trust the flow. There's a freedom in love when you follow your heart. Together we are stronger than we could ever be apart. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah, there is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. Breathe in and out. Slowly feel all that's around you. All that you feel, all that you know. Let it go. Welcome to love. Welcome to peace. Welcome to our community. Be who you are. Let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. Yeah, when we unite. Oh, we unite. Yeah, yeah. When we unite. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You are welcome here. Love is welcome here. Peace is welcome here. You are welcome here.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone to Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. I am Reverend Cindy Grimes and you are welcome here. Gosh, every time I hear that song, I feel like just crying. It's such a beautiful sentiment and I want everyone to know that we are a place where everyone is welcome, regardless of what side of the tracks you come from, what your sexual orientation is, how much money you have or don't have, or whatever it is, you are welcome here. Everyone is welcome here. And so this is what we're about at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. This is what we value. Number one on our list is spiritual growth and practice. It is why we come together. It's the reason that we exist, and it is number one on our list of values. And we value love. We believe that love is the basis of who we are as spiritual beings, having a human experience. We are here to be love in expression. And we value appreciation. We believe that that word appreciation, gratitude, that where we focus our attention and what we appreciates, meaning that it grows in our awareness and in our lives. And so we also value community. We value those social connections, good, positive vibes from people who kind of, gel with us. And we value freedom of expression. We encourage that. We are a model center for spiritual living, as evidenced by the transformational impact we have on our own spiritual community, on the larger Centers for Spiritual Living organization, and the community at large. See, we at Centers for Spiritual Living Ocala, we're one of just many centers for spiritual living that are located all throughout, especially North America, the US and Canada, but all over the world. And so if you're in an area outside of Ocala, you may not be anywhere near Central Florida. There very well may be a center near you, and I would encourage you to check it out when you can, if they're meeting in person. And so, our mission at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala is to empower individuals to awaken to the power and presence that lies within and all around them so they may live their best lives. And what that means for me is the idea that spirit shows up as us, right? As us beings. We are the hands and feet and eyes and ears and voice and God in expression. And that's what we believe about each and every one of us. So if that's what you're about, you're welcome here. Even if you don't believe it, you're still welcome here. We love you anyhow. And so this month at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala, we are doing the work of a woman named Valarie Kaur, and her book is See No Stranger. Out of that book, See No Stranger, Memoir and Manifesto of Revolutionary Love, comes the Revolutionary Love Project. And what that is, revolutionary love, that's the Jesus kind of love, that's the Gandhi kind of love, that's the Mandela love, that is love for our fellow human beings from all sides of the track, whether they are like-minded or not. Sometimes those human beings show up as what we might think of as opponents. But opponent's not a static thing. An opponent could be my grandson when he's not doing what grandma wants him to do, or it could be my spouse. It could be a coworker or a friend. Sometimes people become opponents, but it's a temporary thing. So anyway, we're talking about love in all of those different aspects. At the beginning of the year, we first talked about loving others and what that could look like. Then we talked about loving our opponents and what it takes to be in the right space to be able to do that, and kind of having your home base, so to speak, so that you can regroup and go out there in the world and do your thing. And for the last part of the year, we will be talking about revolutionary love and how that applies to loving ourselves. Now, Valarie comes from a background that is very activist oriented. We come as Centers for Spiritual Living more from a personal perspective. So this is where we, the meeting ground for how we love ourselves, how we love others, how we show up in the world as our very best. And so this month we are talking about just breathing, what it means to breathe as an act of self-love. And I have my fellow practitioner from Center for Spiritual Living Ocala, Donna Davis, with us. Hello, Donna.
Hello, everybody.
This is just the perfect person, I think, to end this conversation with this month in talking about this idea of just breathing as self-love and spiritual practice. And you have been a great teacher. So we're going to talk about that, what I've learned from you, what we've both learned from other people, and just go from there. But before we get started in our conversation, my beautiful prayer warrior woman, I'm just going to hand it over to you to do our invocation and just set intention and get us all in the right mind space for this conversation. And
Absolutely.
I will leave it to you.
Absolutely. I'm so excited about this because I just left an amazing retreat with David Alt and his partner, Jay Ram, and acquired these new mala beads for prayer and meditation. And so I've been soaking up that awesome retreat energy. And now, as I sit in this space with you, I want you guys to breathe with me. Just in this moment, as we do this spiritual mind treatment, we're just breathing. So I want you to just sit in your seat, allow it to hold your body. Proceed to take a nice, deep, cleansing breath. And I recognize the allness of the one. And as I sit in this space, in this chair that holds my physical form, I recognize the allness as being all around me. Every atom, every molecule, the chair itself is the allness. The window, the house, the trees outside, all of it is the allness. And I'm a part of this very moment. So therefore, I'm also the allness. And every person that is hearing me is now recognizing, wait a minute, I too am sitting in a space of the allness. And the allness is breathing this body. And the allness is assimilating the oxygen within my lungs and taking out the carbon dioxide. And the allness is beating my heart right now. And I am aware of this breath. And I am connected to this breath. It is from that place of connectivity that I know that the heart is open in me and Cindy and every person who is hearing this talk today live or coming up or years to come, archives of this talk. The heart space is open as we are connecting and remembering who we are as the allness itself, experiencing together, remembering together, opening together, rediscovering who it is that we are one with that which is magnificence and power and love. And the actual breath of life itself is pulsing in my veins. And I'm grateful for that life. I'm grateful for my life and your life and God's life. And so I release this, release all of my thoughts, all of my actions, all of my words, all my desires into the law, knowing that that which is unformed substance knows how to take my very thoughts and give me back, mirrored back to me, that very love that I put into it. I release it now and say, Amen, Ashe, and so it is.
Thank you, my dear. I was so relaxed, I almost forgot to come back in.
We're talking about breathing.
Breathing.
I need
Wow.
to get, yeah. I'm still shaking. Give me 1 second. I need to try to put this down so it will stop shaking. It's driving me insane. There's that Virgo brain. I love it. There.
All right.
Now I'm
I
not
think it's
shaking.
still. Okay, great. Oh, that's
I
awesome.
blame it on the Virgo brain. You know, I'm like, oh, there it is. There's that part of me, that's ADHD part of me going, I noticed that little tiny thing over there.
Hey, but you know what? There's going to be people noticing it too when they watch, and so they'll be very happy that you stopped that.
Yay, I'm so glad.
'Cause it gets distracting. Anyway,
Yes.
thank you. I'm so glad that you're here to have this conversation. You know, we started the month talking about this idea, sitting on a mountain in Big Sky, Montana,
Oh, man.
right? And here we are back again. I know
Mhm.
you and Norma hit the floor running, right? Off the
We
plane
did.
and
We
straight out on
sure did.
the hmm hmm
Yeah. We've been doing that quite a bit, I think, where we're just like hitting the ground running and we're like, okay. And I think it's because we had discovered this part of ourselves that said, let us have an adventure.
Hmm.
you know? And to have an adventure, you kind of have to hit the ground running. You can't just be like, let me just tiptoe into this adventure. No, it's a yay adventure. So I think that that's kind of what's happening.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm
And
glad.
when,
Go ahead.
no, I said, and when something says to us, slow down, we will. We pay attention to that. So,
And I'm so happy to hear it. Well, number one, you got a Sunday afternoon off, which doesn't happen all the time.
yes,
And the other
yes.
thing that you actually did take some time to be in retreat with David Alt.
Oh my gosh. Keratin chanting is amazing. And it was just so much fun. And your heart just is bubbling up and joy. Ah, it was just so good to come from Big Sky and then be like, oh, went to work for a couple of days and then boom, in this space. And then I'm back, we're back in Ocala tonight. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard though, that I know for me in past years, this time not so much because I didn't do a lot outside of Big Sky, but you have this high and this amazing experience, and then you come back into like, regular life.
Yeah. And then you have this huge crash, and
Yes.
this depression that gets you into your bed and you're like, what's the meaning of life anymore?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Where I used to say, I think it was before one of the, not before, but during one of the ministerial retreats, like right at the end, there's all this love and kumbaya and everything's so wonderful. And you start thinking, oh, but then I got to go to work tomorrow, whatever's coming next.
Yeah. So you're
And
like,
so people
no.
will say, oh, it's time to go back to the real world. And I would always say that. And it was Reverend Dr. Ken Gordon who said, what we have created here, this feeling, this ambiance, this love, this connection is the real world.
Yes.
It's our task as spiritual leaders, as practitioners, just as spiritual beings, right? Wherever we go,
Hmm.
we have the eyes and ears and hands and feet of spirit to create that in our
Hmm.
larger world. And
Hmm.
that has always stuck with me. Like, wow, that is. Imagine if we could all have that experience more often than not,
Yeah.
instead of
And,
feeling like this is it, you know?
well, the thing of it all is that the real world is that,
Hmm.
and so now I'm starting to tell myself I'm stepping in, I'm plugging into the system. I'm going to be plugging into the system for these 3 days. And for those 3 days, I'm focused on nursing or I'm focused on, and then when I unplug from the system and walk away, then I can say, okay, I'm back in the real world. I'm back.
Yeah.
Because my world that I have created around me is completely covered in love and wonder and joy and my tribe and all of that. And so that for me is the real world.
Yeah.
And this now, the tribe has extended to Atlanta.
Yeah.
It's extended to Atlanta because our son moved here.
Right.
So
And
that's where we are right now.
because you have plugged into the larger community as well. It's
Hmm.
no longer just the walls of CSL Ocala where we all
Hmm.
met, but realizing that our community is really much bigger than that.
Oh my gosh. The church is way bigger,
Yeah.
whereas before it was like, oh, I need to go to church. And then we started calling it center because it's like center here, the
Mhm.
center. And we are all coming with our center together, gathering. And now it's like the center has blossomed and expanded itself, kind of like our symbol, where it's like the center and then this boom that extends away from the center, like out into the greater community. And then
Yeah.
everybody else is doing it. So like we're becoming all these little mandalas all over, just spinning in our own little mandala, but still a part of the bigger thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's really
Well,
cool.
what you brought up just now, Donna, is part of why I wanted to have this conversation with you today,
Hmm.
because you, for me, really exemplify what it is to carry that sense of being at home wherever you go. People
Hmm.
who know our community and who come here and hang out know that when we book a musician or a speaker or whatever, they're going to stay at Irie House, right? They're going
Yeah.
to stay at your place because
Yeah.
it is such a welcoming place where, I think people walk in and feel like I can
It's like
breathe.
Auntie's house.
Yeah, I can breathe here. I know,
Yeah.
going into your home, that it's a place where you can relax and you can breathe and you're safe and it's all good. And you carry that vibe with you
Mm-hmm.
wherever you go, and so I'm just grateful to know that as you're out there nursing and
Yeah.
as you're helping nurses get through their day and giving them that little shot of inspiration or positivity
Mhm.
or whatever it is, that you bring that feeling of home and surrounding, and like you're safe here,
Yeah.
you
But
know.
you know why that is? Is because I fundamentally have been really zoned in on that first step of treatment. God's everywhere. So everywhere I go, I'm like, okay, God's here too.
Yeah,
And so every person I'm meeting, okay, that's God like me. And so I'm connecting to that, and it's spiritual practice, and I keep seeing it and I keep looking for it. And the times when I forget, like if I had a difficult night, or I'm having one of my depression episodes, when I start to forget, I try to pull myself out of the bed, which is very difficult with depression. I pull myself out of the bed and go stand outside and look up in the trees, and they're just so grounded, and I go, yes, God's here too. And that's how that home feeling stays. And then I pull other people into the experience with me
yeah.
when I meet them.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think that's part of also what makes you a safe person, is
Hmm.
that you come to life from having experienced your own trials. It's not like to say, oh, life
Mm,
is just wonderful. I've had the red carpet laid out for me, the silver spoon in my mouth, like all of that. And you didn't have any of that.
mm, mm.
And to have faced difficulty, hardship, all of those
Yeah.
things, and come through it on the other side. And you know what? Sometimes you go back there again. Sometimes life just throws you a curveball, or somebody gets sick or dies or whatever.
Hmm.
And you know that you can still move through that. You can be in the muck and the kind of the pain of
Hmm.
that, but you come out on the other side.
Hmm. But it's the recognition. It's the
Right.
recognition. So, like, today we're talking about breathing. It's like, oh my gosh, am I in my pain body right now? And for me, it's that depression. Am I in this depression right now? Is it me, or really is this my depression? Or is this my anxiety? Oh, that's what that is. And then suddenly I can be like, okay, that's why I started calling it my physical form. Allow my physical form to readjust and do whatever hormonal thing it's going to do, and then support it as much as I can, reaching out, talking to somebody, and then, because it doesn't stop. It's not like, oh yeah, I know, that I'm here, ever present, God's everywhere. Oh, and depression just suddenly disappears. Your body still goes through the weird hormonal dump, but it's recognizing and then honoring that, oh yes, this is here for me to heal as well. Oh yes, that's also God saying, hello, let me show you something,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to keep going and picking it apart and really looking at it. Oh,
It's doing the work, right?
ugh.
Well, we all have to do
The
our work.
shadow work, that shadow work is no joke, and it sucks when you're in it. And
Hmm.
that's why it's nice to have mentors, and that's why it's nice to have people you can reach out to that can say to you, girl, come on back.
Right, right. So that's why we're here, right? That's today's conversation is just about helping other people through those moments. So it means
Mhm.
honoring yourself and taking that time to breathe and do a curtain retreat or whatever you need to
Yup,
do, right? To bring yourself back
yup.
to the center. For me is go out to
Drum.
the woods, drum, walk
Mhm.
outside, paint, sing, dance, go
Play
to
with
the
the
beach.
grandbaby.
Yeah, all of those
Babies are so good. They're like in the space all the time. So you're like, oh, and then they pull you into that little space. Man, I've been watching videos of the grandbaby online, and I'm like, oh man, that laugh, that giggle. I'm like, oh, no matter what is going on in the world, you hear that giggle and it just drops you right into that, oh, that
Yes,
space. And dogs are great for that too.
yeah,
Kitty cats when they come up and do their thing.
right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I know that we both done our work, let's put it that way.
Mm. It
You know,
keeps going.
and the analogy that Valarie uses throughout the book, right, about
Mhm.
the darkness, and how, yes, these times are very dark, and you're seeing it. You've been seeing it firsthand on the COVID front lines.
Uh, yeah.
And so, there's a lot of fear around that, and Valerie's analogy, or what she said, that has stayed with me since I heard it back, I don't know, 2015, or when she first said it, was that this is not what if this is not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb, right?
Mm,
And
yeah.
we know that anybody who's given birth, anybody that's seen it, you don't even have to have seen it to know that it's not fun, not easy. It's
It's
messy.
messy and
It's
painful
painful.
and scary and all of that.
Yes.
And still in the midst of all of that, there's joy and anticipation and elation and, oh my gosh, it's finally here. And
Yeah.
and shock and crazy and all of that.
Right. New life. New life. It doesn't emerge, I think, without having all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
we could just, remember that. And also, the thing that is so helpful for women as we go through that birthing process is to have somebody there with you, right?
A midwife.
A coach, a midwife, somebody who
Hmm.
can help you in that moment, right? To focus, to breathe, to reorient, right? To bring you back
Hmm.
to the task at hand,
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
hold your hand when you're afraid, to rub your
Hmm.
back when you're in pain, like all of that
Yeah.
stuff. Like we
Hmm.
need people. We need
Hmm.
people to. I mean, I'm sure
Yeah.
women could give birth by themselves, but oof,
Yeah. It's just not the same. And that's the thing. We need that tribal energy. We need people in our lives to be that. But sometimes even if you're alone, just knowing that. And what is awesome about social media is that there is that reach out messenger, there's TikTok, there's all kinds of stuff of people that are there saying things and validating, even if they're not in that moment with you. So
yeah,
there's still other avenues that people can reach out to. And that's what I try to encourage people. It's not just, oh well, this person's at work, so I'm all alone, or that person's, you're not alone. We still have the greater community. We still have the greater world. Even if you don't even know these people, they're there.
right.
Yeah.
And and I think we get to a point, and I'm not always there, where I can drop into myself, my own,
Your higher self.
right, my own higher self, and
Yes.
find that safety and nurturing right here, depending on
Hmm.
what the thing is, right? Depending on what's going on. So it's just a continual kind of a practice.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to ask you, when was I know when my time was, and I'll share that, but throw it out to you first. That first experience of knowing I can be me in this space,
The
and
first
somebody
time.
helping you to breathe through that. Or maybe you've always felt that. I don't know, because I can remember as a kid where I felt as a child like, I could sing, I could dance, I could just be totally me. And then things happened that had me retreat,
Mm.
which I think happens to everybody, somewhere
Yeah.
you retreat, you feel like
Yeah.
you're not good enough, what all that stuff happens. And then it took a while for me to feel like I could be safe, like I really could be myself. And I found that honestly in the center here at the Center for
Hmm.
Spiritual Living with
Hmm.
Reverend Peggy.
Yeah.
It was like a
Yeah.
place that I could go. My first place, I felt like I could really just say what I needed to say, cry, whatever was going on for me, share that, and
Hmm.
feel like there was not going to be any judgment.
Hmm.
In fact, she uplifted.
Yeah.
So that was my one of my first experiences of that safe place.
Hmm.
And not surprisingly, I became a minister, right?
Right. Right.
Because of having that experience, and
Hmm.
knowing what it was to be able to finally relax and unburden.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, my first time of feeling that way, honestly, was in therapy. I
Mm-hmm.
had a therapist named Sherry Abercrombie. Man, uh, I remember going to I was 17 and, had been through the trauma. I was in the group home for girls. And, family therapy and individual therapy were the two things that you had. And I don't remember if it was a Thursday or Friday my therapy day was, and I sat and I looked at her like this. And that happened for a couple of sessions, not one word. And I love to talk, not one word. And she just sat and kind of had like a little smile thing. And I know exactly what you mean about Reverend Peggy. She does that same little sit,
Mm-hmm.
soft face smile thing. And Sherry Abercrombie was the first time I felt that non-judgmental, just talk to me. Now, of course, I didn't pour out as much as I did when I found the center. I had been going through my own, spiritual stuff at the time, but I was 17, the first time I felt like I could be honest about who I am
Mm-hmm.
without judgment. And she was the first person to make me feel safe like that,
Mm.
you know. And then I started saying, oh, that's what a safe person looks like.
Yeah.
And so when I found other people with that energy, I started to want to emulate that for other people because I knew how important it was for me to
Yeah.
look at somebody's face, that soft face with that open heart that just said, tell me about you,
Yeah.
you know?
You are welcome here.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I mean,
Awesome.
I don't know her personal life or nothing like that, but
Mm-hmm.
she's, I'm sure, trained because she's, a therapist, but
Sure.
that piece right there, and you do it too, Cindy, when you're listening to someone and it's that active listening. I had never really experienced it, or at least recognized it before. I
Right.
had not recognized it before or allowed myself to recognize it.
And
And
so thank you for bringing up that point because I don't want people to think that they have to be a therapist or a minister. Like you need this special training to be able
no,
to do this for people because it really is primarily about presence.
yes.
And what I mean with presence, it's not that you carry your personality. It's like being there with somebody in that moment, 100%.
Mhm,
Like I might
mhm,
have, who know, whatever happened this morning or yesterday, worries about tomorrow, whatever it is. But when I'm with somebody in that moment, I'm 100% present with them in the moment. Everything else is gone. I am here with you,
mhm.
100%. And I think, and I'm sure that's what Reverend Peggy,
Oh
brought to you.
yeah.
I'm sure that's what Sherry Abercrombie did for you. That's what you do for other people is bring that
Mhm,
presence and it creates this opening for whatever is there to show up,
mhm.
right? That's what I mean. That's my take on it. That is what I'm
Yeah.
realizing all of these years. What is it that's different about about me? Because people say that. What do I
Mhm.
do? And that is the one thing that I can think that I do is that I come with, I'm not here to judge you. I'm just here to love you and create this space, like
And to just listen.
whatever it is.
Just
Yep.
listen. Don't put my own agenda on what you're saying. Nothing. Just listen.
Mhm.
And the thing of it all is that anybody can be like that. Anybody can just sit, open their heart, and just listen to the story with
Yeah.
no, oh my gosh, I'm thinking this, I'm none of that.
Yeah.
And it comes with time and it comes with a constant reworking of yourself because I'm not going to lie. I'm a talker, like I said. So when people are talking to me, I actively have to bring myself back. And when my little brain decides to go off on whatever tangent it's going off on, oops, squirrel, I'm like, oh, wait, come back, be present. Watch my breathing, listen, open hearted. Yes, tell me more. And really zone into what that person is saying and how they're being, and just be love in that space. And
Hmm.
that's it. Your agenda after a while just blows away. It doesn't, and the more and more you do it, the easier and easier you drop into that space of open heartedness.
Hmm.
And that's that unconditional love of the divine. And I think it's like my human self and my own story takes a back seat, like
Yeah.
you said. And then suddenly nothing else takes you away out of space. that comes with practice.
Yes. And, but the other thing that's so beautiful is that people find their own answers. Like, I don't have to
Hmm.
know for you, the thing that you
Oh
need
yeah.
to do. I can't know that. In fact, the only one who can know what it is that you need, or what spirit is trying to show you, whatever the inspiration is for you,
Mhm.
is for you.
Mhm.
So my job, our job as practitioners, is, just good human beings, is to just create that space for people to find their answers,
Mhm.
their
Yeah,
own.
because sometimes they have to process it out loud
Yeah, yeah,
because it gets messy in the mind. There's so much history and stuff in there and way too many words. So when you say it out loud, you have a limited amount of words that can come out in that little bit of time. So
yeah,
you're processing it through. And as
right.
you're processing it too, oh, look at there. I came up with the answer. Huh.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing too, I think, just to be like plain, right? Direct. You're a nurse. You see like
Hmm.
everything. Well, as right, nurses see. So there is nothing that somebody is going to tell you, or that you're going to see, that's going to be like, whoa. We just, because we're in it, in the human
Yeah.
stuff. And me as a social worker, I did death and dying. I did abuse and neglect. I even, this because we were friends at the time, when I sold, adult novelties. So naughty nineties, and things like that. But it was really, and I was in the
That's why we kept coming back to the center, truth be told.
that's
Because you said, "Oh," and we were like, "What are you doing?" You're like, "Well," and you started laughing, and I was like, "I love this place." Because, at the end of the day, we do have a primal need, and we do have that part too. So I was like,
it's real.
"Man, somebody that's
It's
not like
human.
shaming regular stuff that people talk
Yeah,
about and deal with." I'm like, "Oh my goodness, look at that. Breath
it's
of fresh air."
right, right. So if I could talk with people about, in all these crisis situations, and talk to them about how to have a rockin' sex life, I could talk about anything.
Anything, anything.
Anything. And so that's why people can, I think that's why people can do that. And the same with you, is that people just know they can come to you, and they see that big beautiful smile, and they know there's nothing but love there, and they can say whatever it is they need to say,
Yeah,
get it
yeah.
out of their system, and be done.
Yeah, just do it. And the only time it really becomes a little difficult is if it has me in the story.
Yeah, yeah.
Then it becomes a little difficult, and then I have to wrangle in my own ego itself and be like, okay, get a handle on that. They're still just talking to you. Like if your child comes to you,
Right.
you're in the story. You're part of
Mhm,
that story.
mhm.
But as a mom, when they say, "Mom, I got to talk to you," and you're like, "Oh boy," and it's something, "Oh, well, this occurred, or you said this, and my feelings are hurt,"
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, this part of you wants to jump up and say, "Well, what I really meant was this, and how could you take it that way?" And da 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 da, instead of just listening
Breathe, right?
and breathing
Breathe.
and just put a handle on the beast that is that ego and say, "Sit down for a second. We're listening."
Yeah, yeah, just breathe.
And usually the answer comes out of the conversation, and the beast is like, "Oh, I got upset for no reason." And it's just a matter of, "Oh, my heart needs to get this off my chest," or "I need to feel open about this," or, you know. And I think if more parents can step into that space of listening, you
Right.
know,
Well,
what a world, right?
what I so another part of this whole thing about being the safe person, that
Hmm.
breathing, is accepting of self,
Hmm.
right? That's the other thing, because we have to love and have compassion for ourselves,
It's
so
a
that we
little
can show
harder.
for other people. That's the hardest part. Really, that's
Yeah,
probably the
it's
hardest
a little
part.
harder.
To show up for people in the best way, we have to have our own stuff cleared out, right? Otherwise,
Yeah.
those places are going to be sticky.
Oh, yeah. It's going to trigger all kinds of stuff in
It
you.
can trigger. So, hmm, you can't always go to family. Sometimes, I'm so glad we're having this conversation, just to put it out there, to destigmatize anything about therapy, or going to a minister or practitioner or whatever it is,
Hmm.
that it is vital to a person's mental health. Will you get a reality check? You know, you might be
Mhm.
sitting in your own shame, the story of whatever, this or that, and feeling, some kind of way about yourself. That you go to a nurse who's seen it all, or a therapist who's heard it all, and you realize, like, oh, that's not such a big deal after all.
Yeah, why was I,
Wow, why
you
was I
know?
like, yeah,
And because they're not in the story, they can be objective.
yes,
Whereas like a family member could possibly be in the story or have some pain history connected to what you're saying, and suddenly they're triggered and they're going through their own thing and now they can't hold space for you.
exactly, exactly.
And
So,
that's why people who are in those fields have to go to school the way they have to go to school so they can rip and pull apart themselves and really get deep down, oh, this is who I am, and really connect to themselves and get their own stuff out of the way first so that they don't inadvertently then make it the situation worse and they can actually show up for you.
correct.
And
Yes.
that's why when people are like, oh, I paid to have a session with a practitioner, well, it's a profession, you
Right.
know, it's just like any therapist, just like a massage therapist, a facial person, just like any other profession that is in that caring industry, that's that one-on-one, you
Yeah.
know. And so we who are a part of a community and has that connection to prayer partners and warriors and all that other stuff, but even sessions, you can actually pay to have a session with a minister or a practitioner. Or you
Absolutely.
can just put in a prayer request and, then it comes to you that way,
Mm,
or hey, can I just meet with you for 5 minutes? And, okay, that's a thing. And you can still do that, or can I just call you or text you or whatever? There's always a way to reach out, even if you can't pay, you know. But
right.
the big deal is reaching
Uh-huh.
out to
I'm
someone
seeing
who can hold the vessel for you.
Absolutely. I'm seeing, in the people are commenting. Thank you, Mary Lou. She said that's how she felt the first time she met. She met me. I was humbled.
Oh,
Reverend Mary Ellen said one has to do their own work, right? To be clear for yourself. Being an
mhm,
active listener, there you go, is being present for the person who's asked for the prayer. And then
absolutely.
Kathy, I can't read, I don't know the last name, but she said hairstylist. Have you ever found yourself talking to a phenomenal hairstylist?
Therapists,
Yeah.
man, or bartenders,
Oh
these
my gosh.
people who, yeah, they're
Yeah.
like a different kind of therapist.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something about being laid bare in front of someone when they're seeing you at what you consider your worst, like your hairstylist at your worst. Girl, this hair looks a hot mess. And they are pulling that hot mess away from you and revealing this gorgeousness. And you're like, I feel better. The
Yeah.
nail technician does that for me.
So tell me who you've done that for. Again, now I think we gotta wrap up this conversation soon, but really quick, like I have, well, let me share one first. I have one that came to mind about helping somebody breathe, right?
Hmm.
So it was a family funeral, and one relative did something that was very hurtful to surviving family member. This was in my family, and it was one of those moments where it could have blown, like it could have been really like some kind of Jerry Springer thing. And I grabbed her and I looked at her and I just breathe with me. Just looked her in the eyes and said, just breathe. Take a deep breath. And we breathe together and come back to this moment and release everything that came before, release anything else. Just be here right now and think about, what your husband would have wanted and how you want to show up in this space.
Hmm.
And we just breathed together and just came back to center. And she could take, that there's the thing that happens and there's what you make up about it, the
Yes.
stimulus and response.
Hmm.
And in that space between what happens and what you do about it, you take the time to breathe
Hmm.
so you can then take the next step in a way that is conscious and how you want it to be. So that
Absolutely.
was an example of
Oh,
just using the breath.
yeah.
And I didn't even
Man.
know. I mean, when it came up, it was like, I got to do something here because this could turn really, this could get
Yeah. And
quick.
it would ruin a special time.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
So I don't know. You
That's
have one
amazing
there?
work. Well, I have many because I work with COVID patients. So one of the things I do with them, especially when you come in and let's say a patient takes off the oxygen, which they love to do, by the way, take off the oxygen to go to the bathroom. And then they come back and their oxygen level is like 80. And you're like, hello, and they're gasping, I just can't breathe. I can't breathe. And you're like, put you're trying to put it over their face and they're fighting you because they're disoriented. And I'm like, look at me, breathe. And I put the little pulse ox on their finger and I said, breathe in, breathe with me. Because if not, they go into like this hyperventilation, the panic, and the oxygen's not going nowhere. Breathe in, and then I tell them where they are. Look at that, you're at 88, you're doing it. Look at that, you're at 90. Good job, way to go. You're doing it. Just like a midwife, just going back to that. Because, even though you have people there that are helping you, there's that voice in your head going, I can do this. I'm almost there. I can do this. And you have the other person going, yes, you can do this. Yes, you can do this. And you start to make agreements with them. And I always see it in their eyes and they're looking at me in my face and I'm breathe with me. And I'm whispering at them so they have to listen really hard and get out of the panic. And that's how we bring COVID patients back.
Mm.
That's what we do as nurses. Breathe with me. Because it doesn't help if I go into a panic too.
Sure.
I have to be present in that moment because this is their life. They could die.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so simple, yet it's so profound,
Mm.
right? That we can use the breath to bring ourselves back to that place of calm and center.
Mm-hmm.
And I think before teaching this segment, before doing this, I really didn't have that deep appreciation that I have of it now. When I think about, you breathe a certain way when you're under exertion, you breathe another way when you're nervous, you breathe a different way when you're excited and happy and whatever. So to actually take charge of that, like conscious awareness of that, and use the breath to bring you back to a state of calm, conscious
Yeah.
awareness. It's always with us.
Reoxygenate the body. I mean, it's a science, your body
Yeah.
needs oxygen. When you're in a panic, you're shallow breathing. When you're holding everything, you're shallow breathing. But when you take that nice cleansing deep breath, you reoxygenate your cells and your brain goes, hello, I'm happy again. And everything calms down. And it's coming from somebody with anxiety. I'm telling you, I experience it from time to time. And my thing is recognizing I'm in anxiety.
Yeah.
And once I say, wait, this is the anxiety body talking, I know what to do.
I know what to do.
I know
Love
what to do. At least 10 nice deep breaths, and it just,
changes
that
everything.
crazy, the little beast gets back in the seat, the car seat, gets buckled back in and puts the binky in its mouth.
Yes. Well, I am looking at our time, and now we're definitely time up. So this has just been such an awesome conversation. Thank you, Donna. I'm so glad you had
Uh,
time off this afternoon that
I
you
know.
and for anybody who is on the Zoom right now live, that we are doing our after call at
Mm-hmm.
right about 4 o'clock or whenever we wrap up here, for people that want to come and join us on Zoom. I don't know if you'll
Yeah.
be with us. I know you're with family and having fun.
Well, actually, our plan is to hop on the road right after this. So we'll be in the car on Zoom.
Okay,
So
terrific.
it'll be me and Norma.
Fabulous, fabulous. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for this awesome conversation and for all the
Mm.
wonderful work that you are doing as a nurse, as a practitioner. Just, love you to pieces.
Oh, love you too.
Thank you, honey.
Big hug.
Yes, big hug. We'll see you
I'll
on,
see you soon.
yes, see you on Zoom in a few,
Mhm.
and we'll be wrapping this up and meeting again shortly. Love you.
All right. Love
All
you.
right. So let's see. Thank you so much for being with us. And
Bye.
let's see what I've got here. All right. So it's that time during our broadcast where We share our gifts and tithes. We are, again, Center for Spiritual Living. We're a nonprofit organization. We don't get money from any place other than the people who choose to support our ministry and what we do. And so we're grateful for anything that anybody offers. And we try to make it really, simple. You can go to our website and go on PayPal and donate that way. Or you can do what's called a text to tithe. And the information, the phone number is going across the banner on the bottom. What happens if you have a smartphone, you can send a text message to the number below, 352-320-5110. And if you're doing it for the first time, it'll talk you through it. It's really easy to do. But what you do is you end up putting the amount of money that you want to send to the center. You text it in, and once you're set up, that's all you do. You plug in the 2 with the zeros after it, or whatever number it is you would like to donate to the center, and we greatly appreciate it. And so this is an affirmation that was created by one of our ministers, Reverend Gail Reuter, years ago, and I love it, so we use it every Sunday. And it goes this way: it is the nature of life to give of itself. As it is the tree's nature to bear fruit and the flower's nature to bloom, it is my nature to share the gifts of my time, talent, and treasure. I participate in the divine flow of life, giving generously and receiving abundantly. I am blessed and I am a blessing. I am so grateful. And yes, I know that is true for each one of you that is on this call, this broadcast today, that you are a blessing in your world. And I just affirm that as you give, whether you're giving your friendship, whether you're giving money, you're giving of your time, your talent, your treasure, that all of that is seed, that goes out into the universe, and it manifests and comes back to you, just pressed down and multiplied and overflowing. So I thank you for your support of the center and CSL Ocala. And let's see what else we've got. Let me see if there's any other comments here to address. Looks like we're good. Oh, yes. I see some new names. I love it. Thank you from the depths of my heart for sharing this conversation. Thank you all for being here, and for your listening actually creates the space for these conversations to happen. So I thank you for that. And I look forward to seeing at least a few of you on the Zoom call afterward. And so I think that's it for our announcements. We will not be meeting in person in October. There's a possibility still for November, December. But what I think is going to happen as far as our in-person gatherings is probably going to be first of the year. Maybe some special events before that, but I think we can really organize and do some planning for what CSL Ocala looks like as we come back in person as the pandemic eases its way out. And I know and affirm that that is happening. And so I leave you with this prayer for protection that comes to us from our sister organization, Unity and James Dillett Freeman, and it goes this way: the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And so I just affirm and pray and know that God is everywhere you are, and whatever challenges you may have before you this week, that you have everything you need to meet that challenge and come out on the other side with joy and with love and a sense of well-being. So I hope you can join us on Zoom. And if not, maybe we'll see you next week. Love and blessings. Take care.